This is the 13th Colony Cask Strength. This is the 2025 release. It pretty recently came out. I had to buy mine online because 13th Colony basically isn't in Washington at all. 13th Colony as a company has gotten a lot of praise and a little bit of controversy. But if you watch a number of different bourbon creators like I do, you've probably seen people like Bruzel constantly talk about how good this is anytime they encounter one out in the wild. So I decided, why not pick one up and see what all the hype is about? Because I've tried the basic offering. The regular small batch to me was terrible. I thought it was nowhere near worth the cost compared to a lot of the other shelf available products that are out there, you know, and compared to say something like even the less available things, I wasn't a big fan. But I've heard so much good stuff about the cask strengths and of course the double oaks, and there's the 15th anniversary that came out. I've had an opportunity to try a double oak. Look, I get there's a lot of label controversy out there, but man, that is some amazing whiskey. So let's dig into the cask strength. Let me give you the basic details on this one. Again, this is the 2025 batch. There were a number of bottles. I'm not sure how many were, but my bottle is number 7019. But it comes in at 120.65 proof, which is 60.33. That'd be 0.325, not 33. Label controversy. Well, let's make some up, right? The real question is, obviously, I mean, you've seen it, right? You can see my bottle. You can tell this thing has been cracked into. I took this to a share with a bunch of friends. That's where we cracked it. But I never really sat down and fully did notes and really got into it. So for 2 Minute Tuesday, we're going to try the 2025 13th Colony Cask Strength. Right away on color, you can see a nice darker amber color. See some decent legs here, but not the like lots and lots of little legs that I usually like to see. It's a little more sparse. Let's get on the nose. So right away on the nose, there's this really big nutty note, followed by a little bit of kind of spiciness, almost like Knob Creek and Wild Turkey kind of like fused together, because it definitely is that kind of peanutty nutty note, and a little bit of spice kind of similar to Wild Turkey spice. I don't really get a lot of fruit, but I do get a decent amount of deeper, like almost on the edge of burnt caramel sweetness to it. I'm really curious to see how that shows up on the palate. This is typically between 5 and 6 year product, and you can kind of feel that in that ethanol hasn't mellowed that much. This thing, first sip, even through the Kentucky Hug, like there is a decent amount of ethanol presence, and it gets almost like cinnamony on the palate fairly fast. That nuttiness is really strong on the nose, but it's not so strong on the palate itself. There is good amount of kind of a like darker, almost burnt caramel thing going on. It's really a lot of spice, a lot of ethanol and heat, a little bit of the nuttiness, and a reasonable amount of caramel in there. A little bit of vanilla in the caramel coming in, so very classic bourbon flavors, right? But it definitely does have that more like nutty profile and not fruity profile, which would lead you towards something that's closer to, I would say, like the Jim Beam nutty note as opposed to say like the Heaven Hill nutty note that I typically get. But there definitely is that big presence of spice, and it's a lot like Wild Turkey, honestly, where there's this good kind of spicy note, not something that's painful. However, because it's a little younger, and maybe it's just the way that 13th Colony does their stuff, the ethanol presence is there. So you get quite a bit of heat on this 120 proof, which is kind of the opposite of what we have seen in some of the older whiskeys that are out there. Age mellows that down, and despite their proof, they drink really, really relaxed. So let's get to an overall score. This isn't bad, but my problem is, like, for what it is, it's not great. So with that, I'm gonna give this a 70. I think there's a lot to be enjoyed here, and if you prefer something that's going to put a little bit more punch in your face and you want a like nutty profile, this is going to deliver on that. This is going to give you an upfront nutty profile. It's going to give you a bunch of spice, so it's kind of like Knob Creek and Wild Turkey like fused together. And in that regard, if you like those two profiles, this might be a really cool medium between the two. But if you're not looking for something that has a bigger ethanol hit on the palate, you don't want something that's quite as warm when you drink it, you might want to try something else, because this does drink a little bit hotter than its actual proof, and that could just be a matter of age or the actual aging process in Georgia. Now, for those who have gotten some of the older 13th Colony cask strengths, they were typically around, I think it was like $65 to $70. When I bought this, I got it through Bourbon Outfitter when they had an allocation of it. It cost me $99.99 plus shipping costs. It came out to like $125 basically. Do I think it's worth that? No. Nope. I'd almost be tempted to drop the score down a few pegs, but in this case I want to judge on flavor alone because I understand that part of the pricing is probably around hype, and there are people who are much closer to 13th Colony's distillery or have distribution where this is not as expensive as it would be to buy it online. So in those regards, I think the score is still pretty fair at 70. My big concern is that, like, I've had the double oaked from 13th Colony, and it is extremely decadent and rich and wonderful. It is this very, very good whiskey. And I've even had the maple version of this, which I was quite impressed with, but I'm not that impressed with this, which is probably going to be really good news for a friend of mine in my share group, because he was trying to buy this bottle from me at the share. So I don't know, maybe he'll get a deal on it, because for me, it's going to be that thing that I want to take to shares and I want to share with people. It's not going to be something that I'm really going to go back to a whole lot, because that hotter drinking, I tend to prefer things that drink a bit under their proof as opposed to something that drinks like over its proof. And to me, this drinks closer to what I would expect out of things that are in like 130 proof range, not 120. That would be my review. Have you had the 13th Colony before? What are your thoughts? Did you have just the regular small batch? Have you had one of the cask strength offerings? Maybe you had a chance to try the double oaked like I did from a friend. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Right now, we're toward the tail end of a giveaway where I'm giving away a ton of sample packs for hitting 500 subscribers. And when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away a bottle of E.H. Taylor single barrel and probably a few other things too. As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and stay awesome.